Hi,
Two.
everyone. Here's what's bothering me today. We have a new show, which means there's probably going to be some hiccups and stuff, but graciously here as our guest today is, hey, it's Vadim. And so, hey, look, it's Vadim. Hi, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Hey, it's me. And thank you for having me. How you doing?
Doing all right. Thanks for being here. I know it's probably by the
Absolutely.
time this goes up old news, but congratulations on 100,000 subscribers.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm psyched. That's been a long time coming, but the one, I mean, I think because you tweeted about it, but I have a recent video. For those of who don't know me, I have a channel called Hey, It's Vadim, and I did a video on Lauren Southern. And because the subject matter is kind of harsh, it's about Christchurch and things like hate group. It's basically about the absolute scum of the earth. um,
Good fun
and
stuff, you know.
what? Yeah. And so my point is that that video got buried. So I got like a nice influx of subscribers, and then so because the video's just been buried by the algorithm. So go check it out because it's among I think it's my favorite video that I've done.
It's
Anyway,
it's it is
I'm just babbling and babbling right off the bat. So rude of me.
No, that's okay. I agree. It is a very good video. I also really enjoyed the ones thoroughly taking down Tim Pool. Those were very entertaining, and
Thank you.
I will come back to those as we talk more about YouTube and how you came to have this channel. But I kind of want to start at the beginning of that journey. Like how do you how did you start on YouTube and then become the like leftist internet cat dad of the internet?
That's a good question. I don't know how familiar you are with the sort of like journey of my channel. That sounds really pretentious, but I basically rebranded the channel, even though that I was going by the name Hey It's Vadim within my videos for a while. I used to have the very same channel used to be called Creationist Cat, and
Okay.
and the channel was, I mean, I I loved Creationist Cat. I did it for years, and I loved the character, but it was dated in a few ways because it started out as like an atheist channel, and I used to call it a skeptic channel. But unfortunately, and I'm probably going to make a video about all of this that kind of chronicles like the several years that I was not just doing Creationist Cat, but I mean, like, it's no secret the fucking atheist scene, both online, offline, especially online, and those who call them skeptics, all of that shit went down the toilet. Um, I mean, especially the so-called skeptics, but definitely as well the what you call it atheist scene, to the point where a lot of people don't even realize that at one point it was all right. Like, it wasn't it when I joined it, like I actually, to tell you the truth, part of it was because I've always liked doing politically minded videos, and the character was it was an actual talking cat that had kind of a voice like this. This is Chris, this cat right here. He's an idiot. He was sort of like a cross between Homer Simpson and, say, Stephen Colbert in the era of the Colbert Report,
Right.
just an idiot who was always like kind of sure that he was right, and he was zapped by God through the internet. A lot of it just although it's awesome, it's a little dated. And so, yeah, over the course of doing that, the whole scene actually kind of quickly started getting more and more toxic, and I did not like it. But I started making those videos because at the time, and I guess I'm more left wing now than I was then, I did think, like, I like political humor, and I kind of like getting in political messages through my work. I've always wanted to kind of bring people to the left, even though that I would say, again, like, my politics have gotten more left over time. And so I thought, this is a good vehicle. This is a good way to kind of do that. And, there are videos where I explore, things like abortion, and of course, a lot of it was through the lens of religiosity, but I still do think that religion has like a big kind of like thumb over humanity. I've never had like a problem with those who like, really my only problem are fundamentalists and anyone who's trying to dictate their religion through law. That's like
Right.
other than that, like, I'm not, it's just, I get a
Yeah.
little, honestly, I get a little self-conscious when I talk about it, because I think there's a lot of presumptions that people have about atheists, online atheists, because for good reason. There's just
Because
so
of what it
many.
was like back then.
Yeah, and what it's like now to an extent. I mean, like, I suppose maybe it's starting to get better, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people in the scene that are perfectly great, but it's just not something that I want to have much to do with these days, even though I'm very much an atheist. Um, just because, I don't know, maybe some of it is just bad experiences. I mean, I
I
kind
I
of,
I I know what you mean, because like I've had a similar kind of experience, especially in my teen years, when unfortunately a lot of like the atheism of the time was also about, targeting Islam because of the various wars on terror that were happening in the Middle East. And so
well,
I remember learning about like,
yeah.
oh, Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, and I think Sam Harris even like came upon my radar when I was a teenager. But as I got older, more mature, and just seeing how like pretentious and toxic these people were, it's like, man, yeah, I agree, religion not great, but how you're going about it just ain't for me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I will say, you mentioned kind of the kind of ways in which they discussed Islam, and that very quickly, like, there was a certain point when they first came around, they were more centered on Christianity's effects on, kind of Europe and America, which I think is productive, because that's far more entrenched in our society. I mean, like we're not in any way in a system that has kind of Islam has no real kind of like how could you say control over our daily lives, living in a Western nation. For the most part, it really
I,
doesn't. And
yeah, I've pointed this out before, is conservatives have a more real and present impact on my daily lived experience than like Muslims and Sharia law ever do or ever will, just because of the nature of the country that I live in. It's a settler
yeah,
state. So like just seeing that kind of like, yeah, sure, I take issue with aspects of Islam just as I take issue with aspects of Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism. Like, yeah, I
yeah,
have issues with these things, but I also don't fundamentally disagree with that as part of someone's history, family, tradition, culture. It helps give them a sense of
absolutely,
purpose. It encourages them to do good acts. The problem is when they want to
absolutely. And
mandate things, or,
yeah,
shout at people who are getting abortions. Like, it's like, okay, whoa, hold on now. You know what I mean?
sure. I 100% agree with you. And it's like, I have friends of practically every religion. I mean, very good friends who are religious to varying degrees, who I would say are 10 times smarter than, a great deal of atheists that I've come across. And so there's this perception that people have of atheists just kind of being like lame and overly judgmental. So over time, I kind of started like just making my videos. I mean, like probably by around 2016, 2017, I was not infusing religious topics into my videos.
Okay.
And also just like there were aspects of the character that were kind of inherently tied to I made it kind of like as atheist free as I could, again because just like what you were saying about Islam and whatnot. Like, I mean, it's just one example of many in the ways that they could be incredibly toxic. And I remember like when the discussion kind of shifted to Islam, it just like, that was one of the indicators like, oh, I don't like where this is going.
Right.
I think the first thing was, I don't know if you remember this, but there was this mosque that was built near Ground Zero in New York City.
Yeah.
And it's like, this was like a pretty moderate, but like there was nothing kind of like radical about this particular group. It's kind of like the, like it should be the type of Islam that atheists would want to foster. You understand what I'm saying?
Like,
but there,
yeah. I guess in that sense, it's like the kind that people would be a little more understanding or sympathetic to in the West, considered the like combination of Orientalism and weird imperial, like civilizational imperialism and the whole, the Crusades, Deus Vult and all that. Well, like,
I mean, I just think like these were secularists, like I think that we should be in general like allies to those who are secular religious people, because then they understand that it's not anyone's place to kind of interfere with our laws with religion. But my point is, I'll just kind of, because there's no need to kind of talk about this for too long, but that might have been the first thing that kind of started sparking the debate about Islam within the atheist community. And there's just all these people just like up in arms about it, like, oh my God, there will not be a mosque near Ground Zero. And it was just funny because you had all these atheists kind of talking about Islam and in kind of close to the same way that, I don't know, that like a conservative right winger would. And so my point is just I'll wrap this up. I eventually, even though that I love doing the character, and maybe I'll bring him back to at some point, or do a video on, so hey, what was Creationist Cat and whatnot. I decided that both because I'd been doing it for so long, I wanted to do something new. Those are the main reasons. I like kind of challenging myself artistically. And I started realizing that I was incorporating myself into the videos, and I was enjoying kind of speaking more from my point of view rather than speaking through a character. Right. And at the time I was kind of doing these videos where at first CC was all alone. Then I was incorporated into the videos, and I was kind of like his idiot human slave. But then,
that'll be a fun video to check out later.
Yeah, and then I mean, there's a bunch of them. There's probably more than my videos alone. And then it was about a year ago that I just rebranded and started doing videos as just myself. And
okay, so very much like a pandemic shift of, you know what, now's a good time to...
Yeah, it wasn't sparked by the pandemic, and it started a little... I mean, I guess right around the time, it's just coincidental that it happened at
Oh,
that
okay
time.
then.
But yeah, that's I've never made that connection before. Maybe there's something to that I haven't even analyzed. But yeah, so I hope that explains it. I mean, I've been doing videos for a while, so there's like a lot that I'm leaving out, but nutshell.
I know we only have a limited amount of time, but
Yeah.
one of the things that you mentioned that I would like to touch back on is you said you haven't always been as left as you are now.
Yeah.
So what does your, like, if you want to call it
Right.
leftist or progressive journey look like? Like were you originally an edgy teenager and then you're like, oh, you know what? Hang
Yeah,
on. Like
I
what does your story look like in terms of moving to the left?
I mean, I always politics were always somewhat important to me, but and don't get me wrong, I don't consider myself like there's a lot of things that I feel like I can learn about. I don't consider myself some like, wise authority on a lot of aspects of politics. But from a young age, it's funny. Unfortunately, I come from a Republican family, and not a religious, conservative family, but just most of my family just and I've had. It's really weird because my mom is very open-minded in a lot of ways, and if I ask her like, hey, well, what do you think about this topic, what do you think about this topic, she kind of agrees with left-wing views,
Interesting.
but she just, I don't know, that's a whole can of worms. I used to kind of argue with her about it, and then one day she just like, my mom is very kind of passive, but she I guess she was a little agitated, and she said, you know what, Vadim, this is my team. This is what I've always done. And it's not going to change. And that was really interesting to me. Like I I wish it wasn't that way. My mom is actually not by any means a dumb person. She's incredibly wise and smart in a lot of ways, but some people have these like, I don't know, blinders on certain things. So yeah, that's what I came from. But from a very early age, I kind of just realized like, I don't know, like when I was very young, I was born in like, right in the Reagan era,
Mm.
and um my family like loved Reagan, and so when I was very young and didn't know jack shit, I was just like, oh yeah, he seems cool, he seems like, like
He's like a
uh
grandpa.
exactly, he's like a nice grandpa with like really oddly dyed black hair. Um and I basically, yeah, I kind of just started. It was, I don't know how to explain it, but like I started having a feeling all that shit was off before I could explain it. Like there was something about the party that just felt insincere. But anyhow, by the time I
Good
was
on
in
you
my
for
early,
recognizing that when you were very young. Like, kudos.
yeah, I don't know, I think it was more obvious then to maybe kids than it is now, because I don't know, it still is square. This is still like, they're still like just goobers for the most part. um Square is like I swear I'm not like 58. But they're I love nerds, but they're like nerds in a bad way. And the thing is that
Put
there's
that
been
on a
kind of like this
t-shirt.
what's that?
We should put that on a t-shirt. Nerds in a bad way.
Yeah, totally. Sounds like a band too. But
Yeah.
my point is just, the to a certain degree, right wingers have done this like optical rebranding. They're still about the same thing that they've always been, but like on the surface to some, like, it's a mixture of how you have some Republicans who try and look like hipsters and shit, and the whole like Paul Joseph Watson saying conservatism is the new punk rock. My
Yeah,
point is, yeah, oh yeah, it's all cringe. It's all cringe.
yeah.
It's all
It's to me it honestly reminds me of that meme of Steve Buscemi dressed as a skater boy. It's like, how do you do, fellow kids? It's like,
absolutely,
get out of here
absolutely.
with that. Come on.
I think all I'm saying is that I think that had things been like that then, my radar would not have gone off so quickly. But it's just like back then, and again, they still are, but back then it's just like all Republicans were just totally tightwads in every single way, and they really stuck out, and they were also more obvious. Like I'll say something that is kind of, it's not really personal, but it's an odd thing within my life. But I found out early in my life that my biological father, that I've never known him. And the man who my mom married, they divorced early, but I knew him a bit, and he was a really nice guy. I found out that this man was gay. And my mom had purely just married him because she didn't want to have a child out of wedlock, because I had old-fashioned grandparents. And so
Gotcha. So like that's when
yeah,
you put the whole thing together and say, no,
yeah.
see here, the
And
spectacle means it's legit now.
yeah, and the reason why I'm mentioning that is because so I knew from an early age that being gay was just fine. And and I loved my dad, even though that I didn't, I even though that I don't know, I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time with him within my life because he lived in another state and whatnot, but I talked to him every now and then and whatnot. I just thought he was a great guy.
You at
um
least had some kind of connection with him.
yeah, and in the early 90s, where when I started, when I was very young and whatnot, just the whole country or world was far more homophobic than it is now. I'm not saying that it's great now, but it was
It's definitely
far
better than
worse.
it was.
Yeah. And and you had people on the left who were homophobic, but the people on the right were hardcore about it, and they were the ones leading the charge. So I think that was part of like what kind of made me realize that. So at a young age, I had, because I went to school in Manhattan, I had friends who were gay, and so I like went to like AIDS marches and stuff like that. That was like kind of like a time when, before there was like right at the cusp of there like really being better medications for it, so there was more kind of like
Less stigma around it.
yeah. And anyway, I also protested, like, I went to protests for at an extremely young age, like 12, 13, against like the Iraq war, the old one, not the newer one.
the,
Um,
yeah,
and
that kind of days of the first Gulf War,
yeah,
like
yeah,
94 or
the good
whatever.
old days. Actually, you know what? That would, in retrospect, that one was pretty great compared to the one that we got later, because that
Yeah,
one was
you
just
guys had
quick.
that. We Canadians
It
stayed out of that for the most
that
part.
one ended, so at least
Yeah.
we can say that about it. But so yeah, and then also I was I don't know, into like environmentalism. I kind of did like I was part of this sort of group in New York City that it was a little I don't, it was a little cringe now that I think about it. I mean, like our hearts were in the right place, but there were certain things like that now I like, for instance, we protested nuclear power, and I don't really have that much of a problem with it.
Right.
And like I don't know, I don't think I need to get into all the details, but that was like the beginning of my, like, you know, politics. And I would say then the next thing, because there's just so much shit I could mention that was significant, is that when Barack Obama won, like initially I was thrilled because
Yay,
one,
racism's over.
well, it wasn't just that. It was a lot of things. Everyone was sick of George W. Bush at that
I
point.
remember that. Yeah.
You know, you could not fathom, like Trump. We're like in a different era now of the stupidity that we will accept from our politicians. But when George Bush became president, it just felt like, oh my fucking god, someone this stupid is capable of being I mean, not to mention awful, but it was just a whole mixture of things. And now it seems like in retrospect, like with Trump, like he was kind of just, I mean, he was bad. He brought us into the Iraq war and whatnot, but in so many ways he was better. And my point is this, is that when Obama, like both the anticipation of this change he was talking about, and also just having this horrible president that represented so much, so many shitty things to us, and still does to me. It was just, I mean, like I remember I have actually a video on another channel where I'm like, as a matter of fact, I talk about it in another video that I did on Bernie. But excuse me. But I remember and videotaped the day, the night that he won, and there were just parties in the streets, and it was just so fucking amazing. All these like tons of young kids of all cultures just singing "We Are the Champions" together and shit like that.
Sounds
And
wholesome.
yeah, and now, I mean, I will admit in kind of retrospect, even though that was like a really like honest thing that occurred, it feels a little like, oh, okay, yeah, we didn't really get what we thought we were getting. I mean, it was better than the alternative, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I did recognize over the course of the Obama years that, you know, just a lot of the things that he was purported to stand for, you know, I some of it, I think, I do think that people don't kind of give enough credit to him in a way. I think that he was obstructed more than some lefties like to kind of admit or realize, but at the same time there's a lot of shit he could have done that I think he didn't.
Yeah, he insisted on working with Republicans, and I remember even back then
Yeah.
thinking, dude, no, these people are not going to work with you. You at this brief moment in time, you control the critical halls of power. Just get it done. But instead, nope, we got to actually work with the opposition because we're principled like that. And I'm thinking they're going to destroy you, and sure enough, they did,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
it's really difficult to determine when you look at his presidency, just because he was smooth. He you know, in terms of his communication skills and how he could kind of his optics, he was just really smooth. And so I think it's difficult to determine how much of that is kind of lazy political maneuvering or kind of, you know, fecklessness, and how much of it is, you know, and when I say fecklessness, I mean just kind of, you know, his lack of really taking the bull by the horns and getting some things done, getting more done than he could have, and, you
Yeah,
know, addressing a lot of the things that he said he was going to do. What were you going to say?
no, I was just basically saying, like, yeah, I tend to agree with that in terms
Yeah.
of I feel he definitely had more opportunities to act and to do more. As I've talked about before, my real point of like adult radicalization came after the 2008 crash, and
Okay.
basically nothing positive changed. And just
Yeah.
seeing and learning and becoming more politically aware and everything, and seeing how Obama was in many ways just a continuation of bad neoliberal policies and politics. He
Sure.
expanded the drone warfare, for instance. So
Mm. Yeah.
there were things like that which for me were kind of, man, come on, you could be doing so much more. And that kind of pushed me more towards the, yeah, you know what, can't really trust political leaders to do stuff, gotta kind of do some of this on our own, as it were. So yeah, so like you sort of, like many of us, I think a lot of us, no matter where we were on our political journey, saw the election of Obama as like this really good positive thing, this great step forward for America.
Yeah.
Obviously then like we saw the backlash and we're just like, wow, people really can't handle a black man in a position of power. And then
That's
as time
that
went
was
on, we
definitely
saw, okay, yeah, now we're getting kind of disappointed. So I'm not going to try and take that away from everyone. Like, you know, we're all young and it was, you know, a historic moment. But I think that, yeah, that's probably something that a lot of people can share, of initially being excited and happy and celebrating Obama's win. And then by the end of it being like, man, you could have done more. And now we have like this racist painted howler monkey in the White House now. It's
yeah.
very sad.
Yeah. I sometimes question, how much that getting Trump had to do with. I mean, I do think that if like Obama just really did provide even half the change that he kind of purported to, or
That he campaigned on.
yeah, that he campaigned on, that we probably wouldn't have gotten Trump. Yet at the same time, I don't kind of I think it's kind of a complex issue. I don't know if we want to go into that, but I'm just saying that I see both sides of it. I don't necessarily think it's like all on his shoulders, nor Hillary Clinton's, even though that I don't think she was a great candidate by any means. But my point is, like what I'm leading up to in all this is, of course, Bernie sort of was a game changer in a whole set of ways. I was always aware of him as a congressman, or maybe not always, but I mean, not congressman, a senator. But I was always, well, when I say always, I mean, I guess maybe like from like the early 2000s, I was aware of him just as like he always came across incredibly sincere and
And angry.
I
Don't forget angry.
and yeah, and well, some people say that, but I think he like he I mean, he has a proper amount of anger for things that one should get angry at, but
Mm-hmm.
he seems like such a pleasant guy to me. Like, I mean, that's rather than Ronald Reagan, that's the grandpa that I would want. But
You heard it
but
here first, folks. Bernie's a better grandpa than Ronald Reagan.
I think that's a little uncontroversial, at least in lefty circles. But my point is that like, yeah, like I remember the first couple of months that he started his campaign, or there was kind of buzz that he might, and I was like, I mean, this guy's awesome, but just not gonna happen. And I know, sadly it didn't really happen in the real way,
Yeah.
but I was astounded by how much ground, how much like, just he went. A lot of people, uh, no, I think most people realize it. He just went from like super obscurity to like being one of the most popular politicians in America, and it was just incredibly impressive and beautiful to watch, because a lot of that was very grassroots. And I mean, I'm not gonna say anything new about the guy here, but I guess like just he started making me think a little bit more about what is possible in our politics and whatnot. And I'd say that I just hadn't kind of looked into a lot of avenues politically, and didn't realize, okay, well, how do we go about getting some of these changes that we want to see in the world. And so that is kind of like what maybe there's a little bit more, but it's just such a big question to me. And I hope I didn't overtalk that one.
No,
Does
no,
that?
no. And like again, thank you for again providing some of this extra context for your like left wing journey, because I think it's important that people hear about this so that they know, hey, where are people coming from? Oh yeah, I kind of remember that, or oh, I know some people felt a different way. And I actually remember the first time hearing about Bernie was like, I think the first time he went viral, as it were, and I think he was dressing down Alan Greenspan of like the U.S. Treasury or something like that. It's this really old viral video, and he's just absolutely exposing the hypocrisy of what's happening in the wake of the 2008 recession. And I just remember seeing that online and thinking, yo, like this like crazy haired senator, I like this guy. What's his name? Bernie Sanders. All right, cool. I hope he wins. And then I started hearing more and more about him from north of the border, and then eventually you see, oh, dude's running for president. That's amazing. So yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that kind of makes you a bit of a hipster in terms of, oh, I knew Bernie Sanders before it was cool. But yeah, I think that's again a story that a lot of people can relate to, and people are still very upset, as far as I can tell, about how the DNC treated him in 2016 and 2020. It's kind of like, okay,
I mean,
it's
there's
got
no
some
doubt,
work.
there's no doubt that they treated him terribly, but I still think, I mean, like it's a kind of a bit of both. Maybe if they were, I we do not know, but I am of the belief that as awesome as Bernie was, that we still need to kind of build a coalition of people who are everything from progressive to, beyond that, further to the left, who want to see as much positive change as we can get implemented. And I, I mean, he had a really electrified base and a large base. But I guess what I'm just saying is that, and maybe there's going to be some people in your audience that are like, that guy's wrong. But I don't think that like he lost because of DNC fuckery or anything. I think he just lost, not because he was a bad candidate by any means, but a mixture of maybe a little bit of messaging that he could have done a little bit better, even though that I think he was great. A little bit of just, like we're the youth is becoming more and more left wing, more progressive. I think that down the road, maybe especially like 10 years from now, when the Zoomers are around our age, or not the Zoomers, whatever, the young Zoomers, the ones who like don't know dick about politics right now for the most part.
Oh,
Um,
those lovely people living in blissful ignorance.
yeah. Um, I would like to think that around that time is when we, someone will come along, hopefully, that kind of carries that torch. But anyway, and it's not a big deal to like kind of, I guess we have other things to talk about than like, did the DNC do him in or not? That's sorry, it's
Yeah, no,
a
like,
bit
and
long.
no, this isn't like a conspiracy thing.
Yeah.
And I think it is important that people hear the different sides of, why Bernie was good or bad for different reasons. And
yeah, I don't
like
think he,
as an outsider looking in, it
but
does feel like, unfortunately, even though he was very popular with, our generation and below, there's still a lot of people who are fully subscribed to this, like, current status quo, peak liberalism, whatever you want to kind of call it. And so
yeah,
they saw that, like, no, see, like, it's more pragmatic and reasonable to go for Hillary Clinton or for Joe Biden, right? Like, there is a part of me that understands the current, like, capitalist heartland, if you want to call it that, that is going to see someone like Bernie Sanders as a little more uncomfortable rather than someone who maintains the status quo, but also says that Black Lives Matter, if that makes any sense.
sure, sure. It's hard for me to get a finger on the pulse of those who like, I mean, who are these people who are genuine fans of Pete Buttigieg? There was just
I don't know, man.
there's a Netflix no, not Netflix, an
Yeah,
Amazon
like some
Prime
kind of documentary. Yeah.
documentary on the guy that looks like fucking styrofoam, like the equivalent of cinematic styrofoam, because he's like just like a cardboard box of a human being. Um, he really, I mean, it's great that we have a politician who is gay. That's some sort of progress, but it's just like that's the extent to which he is anywhere near interesting. He's just like, it's so weird because he's just like, he looks like he came off a fucking assembly line of like a neo-liberal candidate, and but then
Well,
he's
that
gay.
that that's capitalism for you, man. You got to mass produce this stuff and put it out there. Like,
Yeah. um so it's just interesting because it's like, I mean, I don't know, I'm glad to see that someone can be gay and be as successful as he was, even though that I thought he sucked. But like that's like all that's the only interesting cool thing about him. I mean, I hate that we live in a society where I have to say, like, oh, it's cool that he's gay, but it's only cool because, like, you just never would have had that 10, 15 years ago, I don't think.
right.
So that's cool. But anyway, my point is that I lately, because of the fact that, like, I'm not there now, but I spent most of my life in either New York City or LA, and those are two areas that have just a lot of culture and a lot of people who are forward thinking and a lot of people who just
And
are
it's just
more
big,
apt
diverse
to,
cities too, right? Like,
yeah,
there's so many different people, ethnicities, languages, cultures, religions.
exactly. So you have a higher concentration, or just there's also a lot of people there, so you have a lot of people who are just I don't know, they're down with Bernie. They're also more kind of, I don't know, just in touch with kind of, I mean, I guess the kind of cheesy way of putting it is they're woke, but in a good
Uh,
way. And I know, I don't know how else to put
no,
it.
I get it. I understand. It's shorthand for, yeah. It's like,
There's like some weird connotations with that buzzword. So I get you, but anyway, so I don't fully understand, even though that I get that it's most of left-wing America at this point still. Those who, like, where like just very cookie cutter, boring, and ultimately candidates that probably won't get that much done, that at least in terms of things that we need to get done are appealing to. I don't understand those people. So
I mean,
yeah.
I still don't fully understand many aspects of America and its society. So, like, again, thank you for providing some additional context to that. I have American friends and family. In fact, actually, some of my family live in the New York area. They're just across the harbor there in New Jersey. and I got some
Cool.
family in Florida and in various parts of California. And then I got
What part
friends
of
like
Florida? Because
all over the whole place.
I happen to be in Florida these days. That's like, I don't know. I've been laying low and
Hiding from Ron DeSantis.
oh, it's that?
Hiding from Ron DeSantis.
Yeah. As much as I can, and like all the politics. I mean, it's no secret. Florida is. I mean, there's a reason why.
Florida
Like,
is Florida.
yeah, it's weird. The thing is like, I think with the advent of the internet, people realized, whoa, Florida is this really weird fucking place where like people do bath salts and cannibalize. I mean, that's a horrible thing to bring up, but it's just the first thing that, like, I mean, the reason why I bring it up is because it's just like, okay, yeah, you see a story like that, and it's like, okay, Florida. Um, it's a meme now, but it wasn't when I was a kid. Like there was, like when it was a little kind of before my time, but there was Miami Vice, and it was just kind of seen as kind of like this cool place, and maybe like also a place that old people went to die.
Yeah, that's Florida in Canada's eyes. Yeah, it's like lots of the old people go down there, spend their winters there, and then they come back up to Canada. We call them snowbirds here.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I know that term. And yeah, it's just interesting. It used to be sort of like Kansas, or I don't know, there's like a few Midwestern not countries, what the fuck am I talking about? States that used to have the mantle of the weirdest
Right.
in America, and now it's Florida. And I live here and I get it. It's just like, yeah, you have a lot of that, and then you just have a lot of weird stuff. And you get a lot of weird stuff in New York City, but it's a different flavor of weird here.
Yeah, I've actually been to New York City before. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
Always had a good time.
best. It's the best.
Yeah, I agree. Like New York, greatest city on earth. Always had a good time there, and like you said, it's just got its own vibe to it. So what was that like then, growing up in New York? Because I know we've seen like memes and movies of kids and growing up in New York, or on the tough streets of the Bronx or whatever it is. So what was your experience like growing up in what's often seen as like one of the like world's greatest cities?
Well, it was truly amazing. I had kind of the best of both worlds because I would commute into New York City from Long Island. Long Island, I don't know if you know it, but it's
I'm
this
I'm a
like,
geography nerd, so yeah, it's
yeah.
like you got Brooklyn,
Okay.
and I think above that is Queens, and then the further east you
Sure.
head, the more like white and waspy it gets until it becomes
Yeah.
basically like borderline New England, and there's like Manhasset and stuff like that, and
Yeah, yeah. I had a decent amount of friends from Manhasset. I mean, that was probably about 25 minutes away. But my town, it's so small that the train station, it closed down. Like they stopped stopping there because there were so few people
okay.
who kind of like lived in this little, it's called Millneck. And
Careful,
it's
don't dox yourself.
oh, no, no, no. Well, I don't live there anymore, so they can't find me. But it's this insanely beautiful town, and it was also incredibly rich. And when I say that, I have to like qualify that my we were probably the poorest family. I mean, we were by no means poor, but
but
we
but
were
by the
probably the
standards of the town.
yeah, my grandparents bought that land when it was just developing.
Okay.
And so it kind of became this really rich area around them. And they did okay, but we were like middle class in terms of how much we made. And then there were just like all these millionaires in the area, and it was a little weird for that. But it also, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. And do you remember in the
Yeah, I
beginning?
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic. In the beginning, there's this like crazy mansion that the two old men live in, and it's been in a bunch of things. It was in Mr. Robot. It's just been in a lot of entertainments because it's just the whole, not just that spot, but there's a lot of places like there's this movie called The Money Pit with Tom Hanks.
Oh
That
yeah, like, I haven't seen that film, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, a lot of it was shot in. As a matter of fact, he in a not creepy way, according to my mom, he told my mom they were shooting something at the train station, and he said to my mom, "You're a very beautiful woman." So that's
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of neat.
It's like thank you, but also like, am I about to be in trouble? Like what?
This is like late 80s we're talking about here,
Okay.
so it was a different time. But and it's Tom Hanks. I think like if anyone can get away with that, it's he's also kind of like a grandfatherly or fatherly type. But anyhow, I lived there and I would commute to this school called Professional Children's School, which was, oh man, that's like it, it, I had so much culture in that school alone because it was a school a lot of people mix it up with the school in Fame. It was a few blocks away from there, and I had a lot of friends who went
Huh.
to that school. But this school was a school where, if you like, I was an actor at the time, and I was auditioning, and I did some work and stuff. But like the point of the school was like, if you were to either get a series, or if you were, say, we had a lot of students who were like from Juilliard and stuff. It was kind of crazy because a lot of those kids. You can stop me at any time because I could just go on and on about this, but there were a lot of kids who were Asian, and when I say that, I only mention that because they literally were like these prodigies from various Asian countries that they were the kind of kids who from the time they were like 4 years old started playing the violin and would be made to play the violin like 8 hours a day, and
Oof.
they would be like 13 years old and be like headlining at Carnegie Hall
Wow.
and stuff like that. So you had kids like that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You had like, I mean, like, God, I don't want to sound like I'm not bragging here, but it's just weird and interesting. Macaulay Culkin went there.
Right? Did you ever meet him or?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
That's
I
dude. That's street cred. It's like, hey, I met the dude from Home Alone.
dude, not only did I meet him, but I threw eggs at people outside his apartment window. Um, and
Wait, so is this you on record saying you tried to egg Macaulay Culkin's house?
No, no, I egged people from Macaulay Culkin's house. Although
Okay,
I
okay,
can say
okay.
the probably the worst thing I can say I ever did to a celebrity from I don't this is the Cosby Show now comes with a lot of baggage, but nearly every member of the Cosby Show went to my school. And there, did you ever watch the Cosby Show, like, or
Not
is that
really. It
like
was kind of before
before
my
your
time. Like
time?
I knew of it, but I wasn't
Yeah.
watching it when I was a
Well,
kid.
the
No.
youngest, they're the youngest character on the show, played by Keisha Knight Pulliam. I don't know why I remember that name, probably because it's just such a the whole show is a phenomenon at the time. She had like sort of like this boyfriend, who they called Bud. When they said
Okay.
his name, they said it like that. And there was this kid, Deion Sanders, who played Bud. And he's also, have you ever seen Delirious, the Eddie Murphy stand-up film?
Yeah.
He played young Eddie Murphy in that in the very beginning.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this guy, he was a nice guy, but he was such a little shit to me. Like
Mm.
we're friends now, but he was like a couple years younger than me, and he would like always just fuck with me and just be obnoxious. And there was one time where he was driving by in he's driving by in a limousine. So like it was just
Oh, New
so,
York.
yeah. And I mean, again, like he had a decent amount of money. And so he rolled down his window and he started going, "Fuck you!" And I saw this dog shit on the ground,
Oh
and I
no.
saw a napkin. So I picked up the dog shit, and he's going like, "Fuck you!" And I started, oh my god, this is horrible. Why am I telling this story?
Because we got to start strong, man. We gotta get them viewers here.
And as he was saying, "Fuck you," I just went up to his window and I started. I mean, I didn't get anything on my hands, but I just smeared this dog shit on his limousine window, and he was like, "Oh no!" And he's like trying to put up the window. I mean, I got a lot of stories like that actually, just
Oh,
weird ass stories from that. So my point is,
wow. No,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry. I need to process that for a second. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
And like that connection with the Cosby Show is like, yeah, and we're just casually friends now. It's like, hey man, remember when you wiped dog shit on my limousine window? Like that is just such a New Yorker story. That's amazing.
Yeah, I
Oh
have a
man.
lot of them. It's like this, I could potentially, like, just write a book or a screenplay about all the crazy shit that happened there, both with like weird celebrities, and there were a lot of people, like there's some people that, like, it made sense. Like, I don't know if you know who Jerry O'Connell is. He was in the movie,
Uh,
that Stephen King movie, Stand By Me,
I
and he was in
don't
Jerry
think so. No.
Maguire. I mean, you'd recognize him if you saw him, because he's just like, he's like, oh, that guy. But like, for instance,
Probably.
he was really talented, and I am not surprised that he achieved the level of fame that he did. But then Tara Reid went there as well. I don't know if you know who Tara Reid is.
Hey,
She's kind of
man, I'm from the early 2000s. I remember Tara Reid. I was like, oh, dude, Tara Reid, so fucking hot, man. Oh, God. Like, yeah, we were all teenagers, man. We were
yeah,
terrible.
yeah, of course. And she like, I mean, what was I gonna say? That she was just, I mean, I hate, it sounds sexist. She was just kind of ditzy, and like, and very Jersey, like just had
What's wrong with people
huge.
from Jersey? I know great people from Jersey.
No,
What's
well,
this?
or very Long Islandish. I was from Long Island. I mean, she was the kind of girl who wore acid wash jeans, which was very, like, kind of cheesy at the time, and her hair
You're
was just,
describing my teenage years in high school. I
and
remember
her
seeing
hair
acid wash
was
jeans everywhere.
her hair was huge. You couldn't put your hand on it because it would just go crunch, because she used about like half a bottle of Aquanet.
Wow.
And it's like, she was perfectly nice. There was not, like, I other than the bad things I just said about her, I wouldn't say anything else bad about her. But
Let me
like,
just dunk on Tara Reid real quick, but then also say, no, but she's nice.
I will. Well, I mean, I don't know. She kind of turned into a bit of a train wreck. To be honest.
I don't
Uh,
know. I don't really follow celebrity news. You'd probably know more than me. So I
yeah,
don't
I
know what
mean,
happened.
yeah, I mean, like she started doing like Sharknado for a reason. I don't know. I don't know much about her personal life. You know what? I've probably dunked on her far more than I should have at this point. But my point is that, just like, that one was just a little like, whoa, she's famous now. Like, I mean, I guess it's because she was attractive, and then also I think there's a lot of nepotism in the business. I think that she had I believe she had a mother or a family member that was a casting agent or something like
Okay.
that.
Wait, what's that about
But
capitalism and like self-made people and not getting a hand up or a handout? It's all about
there,
grit and determination and individualism or something like
there,
that.
there were, yeah, surprising, right? There were some. there's certainly like not like there were some people who I don't know who achieved success, who were from that school, who kind of when they started they just got, I mean, a mixture of lucky and very talented. There was this one girl. This is so fucking weird. Last thing I'll like, so many weird stories, but there was this girl, Mary, and she was super nice, very smart. She came from this like extremely working class family in Queens, who her father, like I think she had like seven brothers and sisters.
Wow, big
Like,
family.
yeah. And I mean, not each, but like all together. And her father was this janitor at a high-rise building. And one day, because they, I guess, couldn't afford daycare, he just brought her with him. And one of the places that he like cleaned was this toy store, or not toy store, but this like you know company that developed toys. And they like when they came in, they had this like board meeting. She explained it to me. She was like, like my father was nervous, thought he'd get in trouble, but they had all these toy prototypes, and they were like, hey little girl, what do you think of this? And so she like gave them all this advice on like three different toys. They took all of her advice, and all of the toys did really well, and one of the toys became the biggest selling toy that they had ever had. And she was like, I like this, but you should do this to it. And it
Wow.
was weird. It was like this thing that like, it was like this cloth thing that like you could put a giant balloon inside of, and so it would make a giant balloon into a, it's weird. It's weird. Like I
Huh.
I I had never, I would never know about it if like she, my point is that they hired her as a like a consultant for the company. And this is like when she was like very young, and like she was
Yeah.
like a, like practically a toddler when this first happened. And then by the time that she was like in seventh, eighth grade, she like was getting a decent salary, and they were giving her all this, again, just kind of like she would say like, hey, do this stuff with toys. And by the time she was like 15 or 16, she was literally making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year at this company.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was
Wow.
just like just all these different kinds of weird, and weird in a good way, just unique people, a lot of artists and whatnot. So the reason why I mention all that is that it's like, I wouldn't say that my New York experience was like I
Typical.
had much like, kind of like violence, or like I wasn't subject to much crime or anything. And I just like at a very young age, my mom like kind of let me do a lot of things. So I would just go to see all my favorite bands at the time,
Nice.
and
Well then,
like, yeah.
yeah, like one of the things we can talk about then, like just all the different films you mentioned. I'm getting kind of the vibe that you're a bit of a film buff.
Yeah, I'm a huge film buff. I'm a super nerd, and I can potentially bore people with my love of movies because
Well,
I
okay.
go into all
Well
these
then let's
weird,
have a little bit of fun before we we start wrapping up
yeah.
some of this stuff then. And first, like just to quickly go back, because you were saying see some of your favorite bands. So who are some of your favorite bands?
At the time, I mean, it's funny because like they really had a short shelf life, and when they came back, like I'm not a fan of what they did when they reunited, but Jane's Addiction was a huge,
Okay, all right,
the
I
the
remember that.
Pixies, the Pixies are one of my favorite.
Yeah,
The Pixies remain one of my all-time favorite bands, and I saw them back in the day, like live, like probably 6 or 7 times.
Oh,
Um, I mean, I I do like, I wouldn't say that Nirvana is one of my favorite bands, but I did get to see Nirvana in a small club
oh man.
when I was very young. I'm trying to think, like, I mean, I've seen, like, I saw tons of bands that I loved. PJ Harvey,
Okay, yeah. Isn't she
uh,
isn't she married to Josh
Nick
Homme of
Cave.
Queens of the Stone Age now? Or did they
Oh,
break
is
up?
she?
I
Is she? I
think.
mean, I, I, I
Like I don't know if they're
know
still
that
together or not, but like I recall at one point being like, "Oh, all
I
right,
I did not know that, and that's cool as fucking hell because I love Queens of the Stone Age,
same."
and that's a really interesting kind of, like, because like their sounds are very different, even though they're both amazing. Like, I love Queens of the Stone Age. They it's perhaps the best stoner rock band ever. Um,
For me,
it
that still remains Caius, which is the band that came before
I
Queens of
know
the Stone
Caius.
Age.
I know Caius. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Caius was cool.
But I agree,
Um,
Queens of the Stone Age are amazing, phenomenal. We don't have to disagree on that. Just the
yeah,
like, what's the best stoner rock is like for me in my heart of hearts, I got to say Caius. But again, like Queens
yeah.
of the Stone Age is right there and just like the clear successor in my opinion because of like
Sure,
everything that
sure.
happened.
So I'm trying to think of other bands that, like, exclusively I saw in high school. I saw Sonic Youth a bunch of times.
Hey, all right, dang, look at you
Sonic Youth
getting to
is.
see all these great bands.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I actually
Perks of being in New York, I guess.
here's another weird story. One of my best friends
All right.
is. Have you seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original?
I'm a 90s kid. Of course I saw it.
Okay, so the kid in that movie, Dan, or Danny, he goes by
Okay.
Danny, and then at the, like, one of the, I think the final line of the movie is, it's really weird that it ends on this, but it's like, he and his dad, who's like the boss of, I forget the reporter character,
April O'Neil.
yeah, April, of course. There's this kid who's like gets mixed up with the Foot Clan, right? And he wears a Sid Vicious t-shirt. And by the way, I bought him one of the Sid Vicious shirts that he wears in the film for his birthday, and he wore that in the audition, and the director told him that him wearing that shirt solidified everything and made him want to hire him. So I'm
Oh my
kind of
god.
so I'm somewhat responsible
Okay.
for that, for that pop culture moment,
Man, we're
as
getting
it is.
so much pop culture like
Yeah,
knowledge and background info here. This is amazing.
yeah. So he's still one of my best friends, super hilarious, great guy. And he really hates it when people bring up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, even though that he loves it, like he loves the experience. He's like very shy.
Tired
He'd
of it
hate
now.
Yeah, he'd hate that I'm talking about it right now. He's just, it's not even that he's like he still like is very proud of all of that, but I don't know, he's just a very private person, and yeah, so it's strange. But anyway, my point is this, that there was this place called, it wasn't the Bowery Ballroom, I forget the name of the venue, but Sonic Youth was playing there, and like we went to go get tickets, but there was nobody at the booth. This is like during the day of the show, and like the doors were just open, so we just like walked in, and they were doing their sound check, and we just sat there. We knew that like that we shouldn't be doing that, but we were like, let's just hang
Yeah,
out if we
let's see if we
can.
can get away with this.
Yeah, exactly. So there was this band that played, and I forget their name, but they had a member who was actually one of the original members of Sonic Youth, who, like, nobody knows who he is because he was like on like the first album, and then he started his own band and they were still friends. And so that band had all these t-shirts, right? And I see these guys who are working there, and they have like the merch out on this table. I hope this is interesting. But what happened was is that all these workers at the venue just started taking these shirts. They started like just like stuffing them in their pockets
Okay.
and whatnot. And it was a little weird, but I thought like, okay, these shirts are free.
Oh
Um,
boy.
and so I go over, and both Mike and I, we think like, okay, free shirts. Let's
Yeah,
let's take a
why
shirt.
not?
So we take these shirts and we're just hanging out with these shirts, like, we're not supposed to be there. And like we see, like we look over and we see like they see the merch, and they are worried about it. The band is, and they start talking to Sonic Youth, and like we're like, oh shit, we probably shouldn't have taken. So basically we go over and we were like, hey, we have a shirt, like we want to give it back to you. And they were like, what's going on, like, what happened to the other shirts, like there's so many gone. And we were like, well, we thought it was okay to take them because just they took like 20 of them. and
Wow.
and like so they got the shirts back. But then Thurston Moore and Lee Ronaldo, who are the two guitarists from Sonic Youth, they were there with the band, and they came up to us and they were like, hey man, it's really cool that you were here, because like, like merch is kind of like one of the main ways that these bands
Make money, yeah.
make money. And like, we, if you weren't here, just we wouldn't know what happened. And so they didn't get, like, we were also afraid that they were like, what the fuck are you doing here, like get out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, understandable given the
Yeah,
circumstances. You're aware, like, we probably shouldn't be here, but we are, so like fuck it. Carpe
yeah,
diem.
yeah. And then so they were happy that we were there, and they kept on kind of checking in with us like, hey, how's it going, guys? And so we just stayed there. We never paid money for our tickets. And then later that night, that was actually the first time, and I was very into this. God, I really hope I'm not boring the shit out of your viewers, but that was the first, like, people were stage diving at that concert, and that was the first time that I ever stage dived. And like, I'd never actually seen it before. This is like, again, before like the Smells Like Teen Spirit video. And also I forget, there was a Pearl Jam video. Like there were a lot of people don't realize those two music videos ruined stage diving and moshing forever, because there was this whole moshing and stage, like it was just this thing that people, they knew how to do it. Like pits turned into these like death traps where if you went into them, like you'd get your skull smashed in. And that's not the way they used to be. Like people would go crazy, but they would kind of like, you would try and be aware of the people around you, and if somebody got hurt, everyone would come in and rush
like
in
pull
and
you
help.
up and make sure, like,
Yeah,
whoa, someone dropped their glasses, clear space. Like,
yeah. And it used to be with stage diving, if somebody like dived into the crowd, it was like your duty
to help.
to
Yeah.
keep this person up. And then, I love them, but those bands like made videos where like it kind of glamorized moshing and stage diving, and suddenly you had every idiot that didn't give a shit and didn't know anything about, kind of like, I don't know, the unspoken culture code of this, the whole scene, like, who just were like, damn, I'm gonna like, and people stopped caring. Like, people started like jumping from the stage and just no one, like, they'd get a concussion or something because people wouldn't want to catch them. So yeah,
and that's a liability. So okay, now we got to shut it
yeah,
down.
but I was in there before it all. God, I don't know how I got on this tangent, but I was doing that shit before, in the glory days, if you will.
We get it, Vadim. You're the original stage diving hipster. It's all good.
I, I, as a matter of fact, I have a video that is on more, for the most part, this guy Armored Skeptic, who I
think
kind of
I've heard
had
that name before for some reason.
Yeah, if you know Shuon Head, that was her ex-boyfriend. But yeah, I have a video called "How Armored Skeptic Flushed Skepticism Down the Toilet," and no, I was not fond of the guy, and I won't go into all the details of that video. But in the video, I have this section which is really just kind of, again, one of these like crazy stories. And now I guess maybe I have to tell the story, but a story of what happened at this white zombie show that I went to when I was a teen, and I ended up kicking Sebastian Bach of Skid Row in the head because he was pulling down people who were crowd surfing and kicking them, and he beat the shit out of a kid who could not have been older than like 14 or 15 max.
Wow.
So
That
I
is
just like
so
zeroed.
messed up.
It was incredibly messed up, and he was such a fucking asshole. Like, I don't know if you knew this bit of like pop culture about him, but like he like wore a shirt that said, Raid the roach killer. Instead of in the same font, it said AIDS, and then and so the tagline of Raid was "Kills Roaches Dead," and it said AIDS kills F slurs dead, and so he was like this horrible guy. He gets on stage and he's like, "Next time you guys see this band, they're going to be opening up for my band at Madison Square fucking Garden." And he did a Kiss cover with them, and then he went out into the crowd and was just beating shitheads up. So I literally zoomed in on him and drop kicked him. I'm not a violent guy, but he was beating the shit out of people. He was a big guy. And I it's the most violent thing I've ever done in my life, but he needed
that you're willing to admit.
Yeah, that I'm willing to admit on camera. And so I had to stop it, and I drop kicked him. He literally didn't know what hit him, and I just, like, as soon as I hit the ground, I just ran off, and he was clutching his head. I don't.
Are you afraid if he sees this, you might get in trouble?
Well, I talked about it in a video that has like 250,000
okay,
views.
All right, so we're probably fine. So, all right, okay, gotcha.
So we're all good. You can print this one.
Okay, all right. Again, we didn't really touch enough on like some film buff stuff. So really quickly, like
right,
what in your opinion is a fantastic and underrated film that people absolutely need to see?
Okay. If you're talking underrated, I was just thinking about this movie yesterday. I mean, like, I potentially could name so many, but one of my favorite films of all time, and truly a film that time has forgotten, is the sequel to Babe, Pig in the City.
Yeah, I've seen this film. Yes, okay.
It's so good.
I think my mom still has it on VHS somewhere.
The first Babe is excellent. It's very heartwarming. It's like the type of kids film that adults can enjoy, and it doesn't condescend to kids. But the second movie, they just did something that you almost never see. they they basically they took the world of Babe, and I don't know how well you remember it, but they make it far darker and very surreal. It's still heartwarming, it's still charming and whatnot, but basically it actually has a very like kind of anti-capitalist message, because what happens is
I'll have to
that
rewatch it again. I haven't
I
seen
mean
that
I
since
would
I was a kid. Like,
I
man.
would say that it does, because it like, you know, it starts out with there's a lot of anti-capitalist themes in that, or at least, you know, kind of criticizing capitalism in that film. It starts out with the farm that Babe lives on is like being repossessed by a bank, and again the movie
Right.
is
Yeah, I
much
remember
more.
like the farm's in trouble and that's why they have to go to the city. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And there's I like, I won't go into everything about it, but there is like, you may like, again, like, I'm kind of movie nerd, so I bring this up because this is also a pretty great obscure movie. I don't know if it's underrated, but it's called Delicatessen, and it's by they also did a film called, it's two French filmmakers, it's a French film. They also did a film called City of the Lost Children.
I've heard of that
They
one. Yeah.
yeah, and the reason why I mention it is because I'm fairly certain that Babe 2, Pig in the City, kind of picked up on their cinematic vibe, and it's sort of like Delicatessen is like a hilarious, also oddly heartwarming film, but
Hmm.
it's really dark and surreal. And so you have this meeting of like this kids movie with just these very adult themes, and almost, it's not like David Lynch, but it's got a darkness to it. And
Kind of
so
trying to prepare kids for what they may face later in life, kind of thing, in terms
yeah,
of more
yeah, and
adult
there's
themes, if you
also,
want to call it that.
oh my god, there's like you know, there's this scene. I mean, I don't want to
Wait,
give
no
away.
spoilers. Ah.
I'm not going to give away big spoilers, but there is a tragic event that occurs within the movie, and it's something that you'll rarely see in a kids film, and they
Wow.
just deal with it so well. Like, it's just a great movie. So that's a recommendation. Like, you'll be surprised. It like it, as long as, you know, you just kind of yeah, it's fun. It's a fun, funny fucking movie.
All
I
right.
don't think that like, I really think anyone who gives it a shot, like, some people might just have like a knee jerk, like, what, like a talking pig movie? Can you, are you serious?
It's a
But it's,
Babe is a classic. Come on.
yeah,
And Babe 2
I
apparently even very much underrated.
yes, I put it in that category. So that's like, if I just have to name one film, then I'll go with that. But I could name others, you know.
All right. Well, no, hey, thank you so much for those recommendations. One of which, thankfully, I actually knew, and I remember seeing it back in the day. But I'm loving that. Like, I'll have to actually go back and check out Babe too. And I think leaving on that end of it's a remarkably anti-capitalist film. I think that's a really great note to leave on, given all the talk
Yeah,
of like capitalism and what we've talked about over the course of like, geez, an hour and a half now. So
yeah.
thank you very much for being here. This was amazing, getting some like dirt and background info on like various shows and actor. Like this was, yeah, this was very much fun. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I had fun. I like yeah, it was a good time. So then, and thanks to all who decided to stick with us and listen to the whole thing. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna get people to say like, hey, like watch this for hilarious obscure dirt on people. Thank you so much for doing this. This was great. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule, for being here on a Sunday, and being one of the guests on this lovely new endeavor. I'd say that's a good way to wrap up another episode of Progressive Profiles.
Yeah. Thank everyone. I hope the rest of your day is nothing short of a nonstop pleasure and a sheer sensation. Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, that's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you again to Hey It's Vadim for coming on today. It was a lot of fun. I think we all learned a lot of things. We got like so much tea and dirt everywhere. It's amazing. And don't forget, you can find a link to his channel and all his socials in the description down below. And if you also like what I do, yeah, hi, I am the Bothered Boy. I make videos about things that bother me every day. I also do this to kind of lighten the mood a bit. So if that's your jam, please consider liking and subscribing. And also, if you want to continue supporting the show and what we try and do here, we also have a Patreon if that's your jam. Patrons get exclusive content. They also get early access to these and other like long form content videos. So if that's up your alley, feel free to come stop by. But once again, a huge and very sincere thank you to everyone who tuned in, to everyone who continues to support me and what happens here, to those supporting the content and those supporting me on Patreon. I really just can't thank you enough for your support. It means the world to me. And the fact that once again, I'm still stumbling over trying to find the right words to thank people because I'm new and terrible at this. Oh yeah, that's definitely what's bothering me today.